Thanks for listening to this Word in Your Ear podcast. If you'd like to get early access to all our productions ad-free, priority booking for our live events, and to take part in our weekly quiz, go to patreon.com/wordinyourear for more details.
Word down your way. Testing. 2, 2.
Well, we're so looking forward to this. The co-writer of Mrs. Merton, Coogan's Run and Royle Family, and the producer of Gavin and Stacy and Red Dwarf and Philomena and other great works talking about his first encounters with live entertainment. It's Henry Normal. Henry, very nice to see you.
Thank you very much. Thanks for inviting me. That's lovely.
Not at all. And we'll talk about your tour that you're doing very, very shortly. But first of all, I wanted to go back to your earliest memories of first encounters, with live entertainment. What was the first band you saw? Can you remember?
First band I saw was, not many people will remember this, Juicy Lucy.
Oh Lord, yes.
Yeah.
With that disgraceful album sleeve with the grapes. Yeah.
They had one single, I think, which was Who Do You Love?
Who Do You Love?
Yeah.
And the steel player was, sorry, I'm going to get boring here, was called Glenn Fernando Campbell.
Oh, right.
And he'd been a former member of a Californian psychedelic group called The Misunderstood that John Peel was very keen on. So Juicy Lucy always got a bit of a head.
Juicy Lucy. They were on
You don't normally get this kind of response when you mention Juicy Lucy. You most people go, who the hell are you talking about? And here we are talking about, the bass player, whatever it was.
Yeah, no. People, not many people remember them. It was at the Boat Club in Nottingham, and I was 17.
Oh, yeah,
1973. And
Led Zeppelin played once.
The Boat Club had such luminaries as Led Zeppelin, even though you could only get about 120 and at a push, really.
Yeah.
But so I was taking a chance, really. I wasn't really a big fan of Juicy Lucy, but I just thought I went with my sister, who was 19, and the dark, dank atmosphere of it all, and the beer and the sort of the mood of it all, because they're a little bit frightening, Juicy Lucy, at times, for a 17-year-old. I loved it. I was drawn to it.
Right. Had you been to anything before that? Had you been to any kind of cantos or comedy shows or any of those kind of memories as a child?
I've been to the cinema, of course. I remember I went to see Help with the Beatles. But I had actually, before then, at the age of 14, I ran a disco for old age pensioners. At the local sort of old age pensioner club. And we'd play, because they were quite old, we'd play March of the Mods on 33 instead of 45. Give them a fighting chance.
Oh, yes. March of the Mods, of course, co-written by Roy Carr. Used to work for the NME.
Oh, yeah.
Written between him and his dad.
Yes.
He used to make a few quid.
I mean, it were camcorders at the time, weren't it? I wish I'd have camcorded it.
Yes.
But there you go. And I did actually see the first ever comedian came at Christmas to that club. And I remember talking to him beforehand, and he was very serious. Now, I thought, he can't be a comedian. He's very serious. He's not making a joke at all. And then he went off and he changed it into a school uniform. Kid's school uniform, and he came on. I always remember his first joke. He came on. He went, me dad, my mum says, what do you want for Christmas? And I said, I want something to wear and something to play with. And she gave me these shorts with holes in the pockets.
Oh, that's very end of the pier, isn't it?
The pensioners loved it, and I thought, that he's obviously saving the funny stuff for the stage.
Yeah.
Very good. Very good. When did you first perform yourself on stage?
Oh, that'd be about 19, and I was working as an insurance broker, which is one of the reasons why I chose the name Henry Normal.
Right.
I used to wear a suit every day as an insurance broker, and I'd actually seen by that time I'd seen my first ever poet, which was Roger McGough.
Yeah, of course.
Oh, right.
And I saw him at Nottingham Playhouse on a dinner time. I'd sneaked off from work at dinner time to watch him. And he'd read Summer with Monica. I don't know whether you know that poem. Which is a lovely sort of group of poems about spending the whole of summer with your girlfriend.
Right.
And of course, you can imagine at 19, I was besotted with this idea. And I thought, well, I can read off a bit of paper. How hard's that? So I wrote some stuff and I got up and I think I only did about 3 poems and I think I got 15 quid. So that was what.
Were they comic or were they you expressing yourself?
They were funny ones.
Can you remember the titles of any of them?
There was one. Yes, there was one about. The poem with no name. So it was, I might be able to remember it. In the movies, he rode off into the sunset, but the next day I saw him shopping in Tesco's. The checkout woman gave him a bad time and he never even shot her once, which only goes to prove Tesco's didn't like real life at all.
And
very Roger McGough-ish.
It is, just leaves it hanging there, doesn't it?
I'm very interested in this. So, when are we talking about here? When you went to see Roger McGough when you were 19?
When I was 19.
Yeah, when's that?
When's that? So I was born in 56, so that would be 75.
Okay. No, because it's really interesting. The whole, I'm older than you, but the influence of the Liverpool poets and that little Penguin book, was it Penguin? I think, yeah.
Oh yeah, Merseysound, yeah.
The Merseysound and so forth was just massive, wasn't it, for years? And so for people like you successfully and me unsuccessfully, who could never master a guitar or anything, writing poems was a way to impress young women, wasn't it, basically?
Oh yeah, and I got very little else going for me. As you say, my dad played the drums in a jazz band, and my brother he used to be in various duos. One of them was called the No Can Duo. That was quite
very good.
And he played guitar, but I got no talent whatsoever. I have actually sang on a Packet of Three, which was a television program I did, to 3.4 million viewers, but luckily it was a comedy song. But in lieu of being a rock star, yes, it did seem at the time that reading poems off a bit of paper was the next best thing. But
also carrying around a battered copy of that Liverpool poet's book was an indication to girls that you were deep and sensitive.
Sensitive, yeah. Yeah, I think so. There was a lovely thing as well. I was a big Spike Milligan fan as well.
Oh, yeah.
I remember Small Dreams of a Scorpion came out around that time. And because he was so funny in all his other books and TV and radio and everything, the fact that it was so tender impressed me. And I've ever since I've been trying to get that balance between being laugh out loud funny, but also, to touch people, and be emotional with what you might call a greater truth. And I think, strangely enough, I think Spike Milligan probably did it in a starker sense than the Liverpool poets.
No, I'm sure.
And of course, there was Adrian Mitchell around at the time. He was doing similar stuff.
Yeah, he was.
But really,
there weren't that many people. Yeah, there weren't that many people in the 70s. I mean, I suppose John Cooper Clarke was one of them. Did you ever get to see him in the early days?
I've played with John Cooper Clarke many times, yes. I remember I had to drive him to Retford one day. I was living in Manchester, and I went to pick him up, and I thought, I'll pick him up about 3:00. That should do it. Got round at 3:00. He was still in bed.
Right.
He got up, and for breakfast he had an egg custard.
Oh no!
And he lived exactly where you'd expect him to live, next to a graveyard. And I thought he's living
like he just emerged from it. Yeah, that's right.
I like the idea that you talk about I played with John Cooper Clarke. So that's the way you talk about it. You say it's a gig. I play.
Oh yeah, well yeah. Well, and you are playing, aren't you? You're having a bit of fun,
right? Okay.
Yeah,
and, the old idea of going on stage. It's a strange thing to do, isn't it? I mean, you are reading stuff that you've already done, or telling jokes that you've made up. So it is like a play in a sense. You hope to own in on some truths, and you hope to be as genuine as possible. But you're not ad-libbing an hour.
No, sure. But you presumably. You don't want to be booked on the comedy circuit, do you?
Oh, no.
That's the worst thing in the world.
No, I have done those.
No, sure.
And to me, it's funny enough, I was talking to Steve Coogan about this a while back, and we were saying that the great thing about comedy is it's like sugar and salt. It makes things taste better. But if you want to eat sugar or salt purely on its own, it's better if it's with something. So for me, with being with the poetry, it sort of makes it all worthwhile. But if I just had to do comedy, I'd like to think in all the TV and films that I was involved in that there was an element beyond the comedy.
Right. No, of course. So this tour that you're doing soon. What kind of venues are you doing, and what kind of people come?
Well, we've done 9 at the moment, so
right.
we're Monmouth is the next one. They're sold out,
right.
Which is great, and we're talking sort of 500 to 900 seaters. Brian Bilston is on with me. We do an hour each, and it's stories, jokes, and poems. And it is a lot of fun, and Brian's a lot of fun. I do all the driving, and he does most of the talking, and we have a laugh between the gigs, which is great.
Right. So what sort of people come?
What sort of people come? It's mainly people of an experienced vintage. People who appreciate, a bit of layered entertainment. So I would say if a 20-year-old come, they'd bring the average down quite a lot. It's mainly over 40s. We're 45 the over 40s, I think was the old advert, wasn't it?
Oh, great.
That was Philosan. Philosan 45 is the over 40s.
I should change my name, shouldn't I, to Phil?
Yeah. Philosan. There's a future in that. So tell me, how do you structure it? Like you say, you're not just going out there and saying the first thing that comes off the top of your head. Do you just go on, carry on? How structured is it? Go on.
In terms of structured, well, it's like any conversation. It's like any play that you'd see or film or everything. You want bits that are upbeat and exciting, or even a band. If you think of bands, they've got the big loud numbers, got the gentle numbers, and you lay it out very much as a band would lay out a set, and you sort of juxtapose so that I like to call it a salad rather than a soup.
Right.
Yeah.
So that you get lots of different flavours.
Do you always start with the same things and finish with the same things?
No. I'm trying very much because I have a radio show on Radio 4. I try all the time to bring in new things so that I can put them into the next radio show. And I've done 11 now, so that's they're half an hour each. So that's 5.5 hours worth of
right.
material. So I'm on my next half hour's worth of material, so it changes all the time, and it can change if you see us at the beginning of the tour. It'll be quite different at the end of the tour.
Yeah.
So is that you doing you're individually reading poems, and also this kind of section in the middle with the comedy between the two of you?
Yeah, and very often the poem has come out of an incident. So it's born out of it. So you can talk about the incident, and very often they're incidents that are funny in themselves, or they're tragic in themselves. So they lend themselves to nice little stories. So it's those, and as you're performing them, lines come to you, and as with conversation, things will crop up. So it develops. It's quite nice, really. I mean, even when you're writing a poem, you can be starting to write a poem, you've no idea how it ends.
Yeah.
It's a little adventure, which is nice.
Is there any aspect... Sorry, go on, Dave.
Do you ever perform anything that you say, I've just written this afternoon kind of thing?
Oh, yeah, very, very much so, yeah. Yeah, and the thing really is to have the courage to do things that you're not sure about. And what I find is the things that you worry about the most are the things that go down the best.
Yes.
And for anything where it's touched you, because poems make me cry. You'll find that other people are not too dissimilar, and they'll be able to latch into it as well. And things that hopefully I find funny or other people find funny. You've got to trust your instincts. And of course, I've done, I don't know, at least 1,000 gigs. So it's like radio presenting. You get a knack to it.
Right. And do you talk about your kind of personal background in television and comedy and so forth?
I do sometimes, yes, and little stories about working with Caroline Aherne and Steve Coogan and lots of other people that I've worked with over the years, and little incidents that can come up. I try not to do too much of that because you can be like a tribute band to yourself if you're not careful.
Yeah.
So I try to, if it's a new thing that I've remembered, then I'll do that. Because there's people that do see me again and again, and I don't want them going, I remember laughing at that in 1984.
You've told that story before.
Well, some people do like that, don't they?
Yeah, they do.
I interviewed Clive James, and he was talking about doing literary festivals, and I said, "What do you do?" He said, well, I talk about poetry and I talk about my new book, and then I tell the story of the Dunny Man. And the Dunny Man, familiar to anybody who remembers reading Clive James' unreliable memoirs all those years ago, it's just a funny story about something that happened as a child in Australia. He was still telling the story 50, 60 years later, and people still wanted to hear it again and again.
He regarded it like a hit single. It's the one thing I can't get off stage without having done the Dunny Man, because people just love
happy.
It. They love it.
Yeah, no, I can understand that. And, there's bands that I would go and see, and artists I would go and see, and if they didn't do one or two of my favourites, I'd be a bit upset. So we do occasionally put in, greatest hits. It's always difficult to know what your greatest hits are. You're not always the decider.
No. That's true.
But you can imagine why some of these bands, though, that break up. You can imagine, like Free, I remember, broke up and became Bad Company, didn't they? And I was thinking, he's just sick of singing All Right Now, isn't he?
I think it was getting a lot more
the other
money
members of the band.
Bad Company.
I think that's right, exactly.
Bad Company were huge.
Can I ask about Royle Family just quickly? There must be certain things that you worked on that you're very proud of. I mean, why do you think that was such a big success?
I think it's a big success because we were as honest as possible in portraying working class life as it is, and I don't think it'd ever been done before. People had edged to it in various plays and things like Saturday Night, Sunday Morning, Loneliness of the Long Distance Runner, and some of those 60s kitchen sink dramas. But certainly as a sitcom, Till Death Us Do Part had done a version of it, but nobody had said, right, well, we're going to really sort of look at it head on. And of course, what we did was we took half an hour of the life of a family and we did it in real time.
Yeah.
and we did it on film.
Yes.
Close in. They weren't doing stuff on film at that time.
Yeah.
And because we did that, you were there in the room with them, and a lot of those lines in the first series were lines that our parents and our friends had actually said.
Yes.
When we sat down to write it, Caroline just said, we're going to write this story of a family. And I got no idea who were in the family. And she got no idea who were in the family, really, apart from the mum and dad and her. And we just said, right, what does your mum and dad say? And we actually wrote the first episode in 2 hours. It just fell out of us in 2 hours, and it written as a stream of consciousness. Me, Caroline, and Craig, and it just and I used to write it all down, and then I go and type it up and just change it around a little bit, make sure it all worked. That script never changed to that's what you see on the television, and it took 2 years from writing it to get it on the television.
My Lord,
because the bosses didn't quite understand that was reality. Because they weren't working class and they weren't northern. So, they'd say, can they be friendlier? We say, what do you mean? They all love each other, but it's not Dallas. They're not going to say, I love you, son. That's not how it works in the north. You insult people if you like.
You insult people to express affection, don't you?
That's right. And we had a read through, and then we did a version of it that was on multi-camera as opposed to single camera, and that looked a bit too bland. So then we did the single camera, and it just came out. Luckily, it came out right.
The thing I found amazing is looking back on it, you think that was once on television, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
And do you think that if anybody had that kind of idea now, it wouldn't be on television? It would, I don't know, be on.
We were in a good position because we'd done 3 series of the Mrs. Merton show, and that had gone down really well. So people were anticipating what Caroline did next, and she was always quite stubborn, Caroline, and she said, "This is what I'm doing. Take it or leave it." So if the B band took it, ITV would have. So it was it sort of forced their hand a bit, and I don't think they knew quite what they were getting. I remember the Guardian review for the first episode said it was written by 3 middle-class people.
All right.
Now, I don't think Caroline or Craig or myself, if we opened his mouth, is going to pass for middle class.
All right.
But they obviously didn't get it. I mean, now if you ask anybody at the Guardian, we loved it from the off.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But
Dave's point, I think, is true that you can't imagine anyone commissioning anything that slow anymore, actually. And that kind of something that takes getting used to. It's everything's so much faster and more edited.
It is, and so I think it was of its time. But it was partly a reaction to the fact that you'd had all those Terry and June episodes, and there was a lot of sitcoms around the time where everything was quite farcical, and you'd have things like you go, the vicars come in and my trousers are down. What shall I do? Well, pull your trousers up and say hello to the vicar. There's not a problem. And so because it was in that era, this was such a new thing that it sort of struck home. Obviously, having done it now, anybody else that tries to do it, and of course The Office and lots of other great programs around the time, you're going to be judged against those programs, and for a new program, it's difficult. I would say in terms of legacy, Gavin and Stacy happened because the Royle Family happened.
Right, that's interesting.
And there was trusted that could work. And I loved recently Derry Girls.
Yes, fantastic.
Again, it's a great portrayal of
No, it's true. So even that's a few years ago, isn't it? Now I struggle to think what it is right now that's creating that kind of buzz.
I don't know. There's nothing that I see on television that you could champion in that way. But it'll come, I'm sure.
Right.
What have been your particular favourites in the past? I mean, things that you didn't work on. I mean, the Frasier Friends, those guys. Is that?
Oh yeah, well, I like an Australian show called Mr. In Between. I don't know whether you've seen it.
Oh yes, I've seen
No,
that.
I haven't. No.
The Hitman.
Yeah.
I laughed out loud and I cried. It's Australians do working class very well. They do
They do.
far better than the Americans. And as you say, it's a hitman, but it's not a hitman like like you get in the movies. It's like a hitman that's coming round like the milkman had come round.
Yeah.
It's very, very downbeat, and he's got a daughter, and he's got a brother with a serious condition, and a dad that he doesn't speak to, and it's the old family thing, and your heart goes out to him and feels for this man trapped in this world. But it's incredibly funny because the main character has got a skewed view of life, and sometimes you find yourself reluctantly agreeing with him. And sometimes it's abhorrent.
Do you remember? Do you remember there was? I thought of this when Mrs. Merton came out. There was an Australian comic called Norman Gunston.
Oh, I love Norman
absolutely
Gunston.
Amazing guy who was he was a kind of fictional interviewer, wasn't he? Like Mrs. Merton.
He was brilliant. He was brilliant. Always had a bit of
he had himself shaving, so he had always a bit of paper stuck on his face. There's a wonderful bit where Warren Beatty had arrived to tour of Australia or whatever. And he was there at the airport, and he did the interview with him. Warren Beatty has no idea who this guy is. He says, "Warren Beatty, you've been here for 3 minutes. Had any luck with the ladies?" And he goes, "Well, no, not really." And he turns to his other camera and goes, "Warren Beatty." Like, it's just so wonderful.
He was great. I remember seeing him at an American base in Australia, and he was talking to the guard at the American base, and he said, Let us in. Let us in." He says, I can't, it's the American base. And you go, just 1 foot. Just put 1 foot in. He was edging himself in. He was very, I thought, I mean, I don't know what the time sequence is, but he looked like he was probably the first one to do that.
Yeah, well, that whole thing that Alan Partridge and, I suppose Dame Edna as well, first the interviewers who were fictional characters.
Yeah. And it was Dennis Pennis at one time, weren't they?
Yes.
But the thing about Norman Gunston, he had a certain geeky charm that he could get away with it, and you were always on his side. You never felt he was being horrible. You always felt he was just being cheeky.
Yeah.
Right. So what's your next project beyond this?
Beyond this, beyond a certain point, death. I've marked that in the calendar. But do you know, I'm loving doing the Radio 4 shows. So my next one is a normal. I theme them in loosely. Next one is a normal story. So I'm working towards that. So that'll be, I think, my 12th show, and I write the books. I don't really have any great ambition because I'm sort of retired in a way. So I'm just enjoying.
It's a pretty hectic schedule for retirement.
We're just saying before you came on, though, it's quite rare for people in your position to retire nowadays. Everybody else keeps going, don't they?
They do, but not everybody's got an autistic son, you see. So,
right, okay.
I have a son who's autistic. He's 25 now, and my wife Angela and I tag team, as a lot of parents do, to make sure he has a great life, which he does, and I enjoy that. I enjoy being with him, and so that takes up time. And the poetry really is a little bit of an adventure for me. Whilst I'm doing that.
Right. Well, you're halfway through the tour, so the traditional sign-off, as we used to say on Whistle Test years ago, good luck with the tour. Come back and tell us about it.
Thank you. I will. That was great.
Word down your way. Testing 2, 2.